Good evening,
Everyone.
everyone, and welcome back to Pixels for People 2023, raising money for charity, for Child's Play. Super Jamoose is back for your Saturday night for the last 3 runs of Day 2 of this weekend-long event. Next up, we head into the South Seas. We're going to Sea Island, where the good doctor, BugDr, is here to get us there and back again. For now, it's game time. So without further ado, what's up, Doc?
How's it going? Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. As I mentioned, very radio host-esque, and I'm digging it. Yeah, I'm BugDr. I run this little game called StarTropics that Nintendo has unfortunately forgotten about for the most part, but I have it, and I've got the world record in it. So I'm going to do my best to get us through this tropical adventure in record time. And with that being said, I'm just going to get started here because there's a lot of time to talk in between during the overworld sections. So I'm going to start the timer in 3, 2, 1, go. Yeah, StarTropics is an action adventure game. A lot of people compare it to Zelda, but it's a lot more straightforward than that. You kind of work your way through 8 chapters as you attempt to find your uncle, who has been abducted from this C-shaped island, which happens to be called Sea Island. I'm sure there's no correlation there, but you know. So the first thing we're going to do is walk around this overworld section. About half the game is overworld, and in a lot of villages and things like that, you have to talk to some set people to kind of trigger flags in order to progress. So we're talking to the island chief right now, as well as a few other people. Throughout the village, so that we can get into our first dungeon segment. The weapon that we got from the chief is a child's toy. It's a yo-yo. So I don't know what he's really thinking about that, sending us into the dungeons with a yo-yo. But well, we're gonna make the most of it, and hopefully it will help us deal with all the horrible monsters that we're about to observe. This is the shaman of the village. We're gonna hope that this is the only time we see her, because if we see her at any other point, then we've gotten a game over, essentially. Yeah, so now we're transitioning into a dungeon segment here, and the movement is all on a grid. So it's all tile-based. You can kind of do actions in between tiles. You can jump over one tile gaps of water or pits or things like that as well. But it's got this kind of like top-down action thing. Again, similar to Zelda, but the dungeons are not always... I say that it's more straightforward than Zelda, but the dungeons themselves sometimes can be a little bit tricky and sometimes nasty. So as I go across the top here, I'm buffering every jump. So whenever Mike's in the middle of a jump, I can let go and then re-input the jump. And as long as I'm holding it down when he hits the ground, he will jump again as soon as he possibly can upon landing. So a lot of this game is properly buffering as many of your inputs as you can to get through these screens as efficiently as possible. And the same can be said for attacking. So whenever you're in the middle of an attack, again, if you let go and hold the attack button again, as soon as the yo-yo is back to Mike, he will throw it out again to attack as soon as possible. So we've kind of just breezed through this first dungeon. It's fairly straightforward. There's one nasty trick that a lot of people know pretty well, which I'll talk about momentarily. And this is our first boss, who we're just going to walk over and just kind of leave him there. Although apparently the back half of him is still a skeleton, but you know. So that was Sea Serpent. Basically what we do there, it's the only kind of major, I would say, skip in the game. And what you do there is you take a hit from him, and then like when he shoots a fireball, and then there's a platform underneath him. And so when you take that hit, you just buffer an upward jump, and then you kind of land on the platform and use your invincibility frames in order to go through them, and you say, bye-bye, snake. So we're talking to Babu here. He's giving us a code to a submarine up here, and he's also kind of being a little bit dodgy about what he knows about the disappearance of our uncle. So hopefully we'll find out some more information from him later, but who knows? Yeah, that's the first chapter done. This one was, again, kind of straightforward because it's just overworld dungeon, but later on we get into chapters that have multiple dungeons in them with a lot of tricks to them. So yeah. So on our voyage here, we're going to talk to some dolphins because our submarine, our submarine navigational computer, who certainly is not Rob, is equipped with a dolphin translator conveniently. So the dolphin is saying, "Please find my son," and it's just like kind of like Dragon Warrior, but thou must situation where you can't really say no. If you say no, then it just loops around the text. And speaking of which, the text can also be buffered, so you never have to mash like menuing or anything like that in this game when you're in the overworld. As long as the text is cycling, you just hold A, and it will immediately advance to the next text box as soon as it possibly can. I'm hoping not to swear. I see chat asking if I've sworn yet, and I'm gonna do my best to not, but it's admittedly pretty difficult for me. Yeah, so we just got a code from that bottle, and also a little note from our uncle, who was just like, "Help, abducted by aliens." And it's like, you sure, uncle? It's kind of crazy. But we'll see if he's telling the truth or not. There's a big heart down there, but for the purpose of the speedrun, we're just gonna not go ahead and grab it. Just takes up time. Needless time. So we're gonna work our way through the second dungeon and try to find that dolphin. Something I'm gonna do up here is in the middle of my jump, you'll see me turn very quickly, right here. That delays me a couple of frames so that I can land on that second sinking block, frame perfectly. Unfortunately, a bat got in the way, so I was slower than I was hoping. But that's kind of the strat for that room. A lot of enemies in this game have a lot of random behavior to them. Their like movement patterns are not predetermined in some cases, and in some cases they are. So there's a lot of oh, I didn't even notice that there were 2 octots under there. So yeah, a lot of the game is also reacting to strange enemy RNG, but certain rooms are fixed. Just gonna damage boost through these snakes. This is one of the dungeons where it's pretty safe to damage boost. Generally, later on, you want to avoid taking damage as much as possible, but this dungeon is fairly... I hesitate to call it free, because as soon as I call it free, it's gonna be like, oh yeah, and start swarming me with weird patterns, but I think we're gonna be okay though. You can hear the music kind of amp up there because of that pufferfish, but certain rooms you also only have to kill one enemy, like that. A bat hit me, but didn't do damage because I exited on the same frame, so that's kind of nice. Walk through this little secret wall here. We're going to pick up an item which is called the Snowman Doll. And we are going to use this on the boss to kill it very quickly. Get back up here. Those red octopus enemies, they're completely random in their movement. There's our dolphin buddy that we got saved. And our second boss, Octo Huge. Should give us a good... I'm gonna freeze him. There we go. He's dead. So that snowman doll, I paused to use the snowman doll I picked up a couple rooms before, and it freezes all the enemies on the screen, including Octo the Huge, thankfully, and lets you just kind of wail on him. And Ideally, you'll kill him in one cycle, but you do get 2 uses of the snowman doll, so if you miss him the first time, you still get another... You can still use the second one. Just a little bit slower. But yeah, so that's Dungeon 2 cleared. And Chapter 2 cleared. You'll see the points rolling up at the end there. A lot of people say that the points are worthless, but they actually have a really neat function where every time, as you kill enemies in a dungeon, you actually get lower scores in that dungeon. So that kind of accounts for retreading the dungeon multiple times. So the more you die, the more you go through the dungeon, the more enemies you kill, lower score you get. So it's like you're losing score because you're attempting it more. But also at the same time, the lower your score is in a dungeon, the more drops you will get from enemies. So it actually has this neat little like balancing mechanic where if you're struggling in a dungeon and trying to get through it over and over again, the RNG drops will start to increase and kind of help to balance it out. It's a very little known mechanic in the game, which is really, really cool. So we've traveled to the next little island here. And by little island, I mean it's actually enormous. It's the largest one that we're going to encounter. Yeah, storm happened and destroyed our submarine. So from now on, we have to walk and figure out how we can fix that thing so we can progress on our way. And that leads to this first little cave here, which is loaded with RNG enemies. These dodos gave perfect pattern, which is really nice. Something else you'll notice me doing is attacking enemies as close as I can, because the less time the yo-yo travels through the air, the faster your attack rate is, basically. Very good monkeys. These monkeys are completely random, and they can be a nightmare. So... Oh. Tried to duck back there. Kind of just try to stay diagonal to them, and hope. Should be okay. Gonna get a sub-weapon here called the bolas. They're like a full-screen thrown item. Throw one there to delay me just enough to just kind of buffer my way across there. Kill these dodos from the length. Those enemies are called boneheads, those ostriches with human skulls. They are entirely composed of nightmare fuel. And that's the first dungeon of Chapter 3 completed. So yeah, the monkeys in that dungeon are like a fair like issue when you first start out with this game. Later on, you still get to you get better at dealing with them, but sometimes they just give patterns that lead to taking a hit. And like I said, in this game, we really want to avoid taking damage, especially in this chapter, because damage carries over to every other sequential dungeon in this chapter. Something you can do is you can refill your health at little hut up here that has coconut milk in it, but we're gonna not do that because it costs time. We have to tell that lady she's pretty or we can't progress. So don't forget to do that. If you don't tell her that she's pretty, then the guard will not let you in the chief's hut. I also talked to that weirdo, the outcast over there in the shrubs. And then we're gonna make our way over to the chief's hut, because that's kind of the all the flags hit for talking to people there. Just completely ignore that first guy. He's like, I'm just hanging out. He's the chief. I think it's just some weird joke that they wanted to sneak in there. So that chief is saying that his daughter is upstairs and she's been asleep after seeing some lightning flash in the sky a little while ago. So she's just been kind of knocked out in a coma. So he says, if you find a way to wake her up, I'll fix your ship. So we're going to go to visit a hermit on a mountain who has a magic spell, presumably, that will be able to wake her from her slumber. We actually have to go and check on her here and just make sure she's sawing logs before we leave the village. That's like the last flag, and then we can get the heck out of here. Yeah, a lot of submarine repair people on here. It may not look like they know how to fix a submarine, but they sure can, boy howdy, I tell you. A sleep check, yeah. So we're in Dungeon 2. This is called the Magma Tunnel. Normally I would damage boost for the snakes, but because I took a hit from the monkeys in the last dungeon, I'm going to jump to avoid them. And then we're just right on track for how much health we use. Or need. That's like the fastest way to deal with those boneheads. They're scary because they're fast, and they can leap over pits. Whoops. Miscalculated that dark room there. That's fine. Grab these 2 sub-weapons, the baseball bat and the slingshot. Slingshot does twice as much damage as my yo-yo and also has a little bit more range, although it's a bit slower. And we're going to use the baseball bat here for a buffer. So I'm going to hold B as I enter here, and Mike will swing the bat immediately. And that lets us buffer all of our jumps and get those hearts on the... I think it's like the second fastest frame to get out of that room, which is pretty nice. I'm going to switch to slingshot here so that we can... we're going to kill some gadflies in this room coming up. They can kind of get it out of hand if you don't kill them fast enough, so got that one nice and quick. We're gonna hope that we don't get shot by these mad muddies. Sometimes they just line up very badly. They generally aren't like a problem, but got through without taking a hit. You actually just jump over them like that. They're not too threatening, honestly. And if you stand right beside them, they won't actually shoot. A lot of enemies in this game that shoot projectiles, if you're one space beside them, they won't fire, which you can use that to your advantage. Now we're at the boss here, which is more of a room puzzle. This is Magma the Fierce. I'm going to hit 2 switches. Oh. I'm actually just going to wait there just to save some damage. But yeah, you just hit those 2 switches, reveal and hit them, drop him in the water, kill him. I don't know why he's hanging out over water, but you can ask him, I guess. But yeah, that's the second dungeon done. And the reason, normally I would have just gone and taken an extra hit there if I were doing like attempts or something. But we're trying to save health for the next dungeon, which is the Ghost Village, which is infamous with this game. A lot of people get hung up on the Ghost Village real hard because it's a very obtuse and kind of nasty dungeon for this point in the game. But I'm hoping that it's going to go smooth.
BugDr, while we contemplate Magma's poor life choices, could I chime in with some donations?
Absolutely.
All right.
No better time.
All
than
right.
that.
We have Nintendo Natalie, who has donated $10 and says, StarTropics is beautiful and perfect, raising money for an excellent cause. Good luck, BugDr. And
Let's go, Nat. Thank you.
$20 coming in from Mittens. It says, it's dangerous to go alone. Here, take this yo-yo. Thank you both so much for your donations. Back to you.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, with that, we are now in the Ghost Village. So there's a lot of tricky enemies in this dungeon, and also a lot of tricky rooms and weird alternate paths that actually kick you right out of the dungeon. So, but we're going to avoid those, I hope. There's one staircase that kind of cuts it close to, if you miss input, you just leave the dungeon, but we should be okay. There are invisible ghosts in this room. You can't see them, obviously, but trust me, they're there. We gotta kill those mummies. Take 8 hits, so I was actually being quiet there so I could count the hits properly. Yep, I messed that up. So those are, as you can see, the ghosts are real. I missed a little turn buffer there. while I was gabbing, so we have taken a lot of damage from those invisible ghosts. We're going to jump over one here. Yeah, that was really unfortunate. So what I'm going to do is I'll actually take an intentional death up here, which will give us some health back and not cost much time, just for the sake of safety. Normally I would just kind of go for it, but we'll just take a death here. Then we will respawn in this exact same room with 3 hearts. And not really much progress lost, so it's kind of the best way to deal with that kind of situation. Ooh, I thought I was going to get hit by that fireball. I'm going to buffer a yo-yo attack here to then buffer my way through this entire dark room. There's a bunch of sinking blocks and stuff in this next little segment here, but because of that buffered yo-yo we threw at the start, we don't have to worry about them. You just buffer your way through the whole room and you're good. This Armstrong enemy pops up 4 tiles from you, so, and just kind of randomly he can kind of delay every so often, which is unfortunate. Kill those bone dogs. Now I've hit another checkpoint. So something that happened there, the first mummy dropped a star, and when you pick up items that are dropped from enemies, you can also hit them with your yo-yo to pick them up. Sometimes that works to your detriment because an enemy's extra drop will interrupt a hit you expected on an enemy that was coming after it. So you kind of have to adapt to those kind of situations. We're using the Rod of Sight to reveal all these ghosts. It's a sub-weapon magic item that I picked up earlier. We're going to pick up another sub-weapon here called the Miracle Mirror, which reflects projectiles, and it's the only way to kill these dim hags, which are Wizrobish. Oh, I can't get that one. Too far away. That should be good. It's the only way to kill them, so if you actually enter this room without picking up that weapon, you're screwed. We only have to kill certain mummies in this room, so I'm trying to... Oh, that's fine. Trying to only lure, like, the 4 that I need to kill there. That was a weird pattern, unfortunately, but that's alright. We'll just... Skull got in the way of that reflected shot, unfortunately. There we go. Okay. And now we're going to fight the boss, who you can't see right now, but he's a big ghost, that's why. He just kind of moves back and forth, but can be annoying, especially with all the other stuff coming after you and like the clunkiness of the grid-based movement. It can be maxi can be really tough to deal with, but we're good. So that's the end of the dungeon. It kind of makes you second guess when you get to this room. You're like, oh, creepy skull. But we just need to kind of jump on that block a few times to drain the water from the pond outside, which is what we came here for. No, you can't kill the ghosts while they're invisible at all. So, luckily there is an extra Rod of Sight like in the room right before the boss, and you can find them kind of scattered throughout the dungeon. But it is possible to not have any if you're using them kind of haphazardly. So I picked up this crystal ball. Essentially what happened is there's this fortune teller that we haven't talked to yet. It's one of the very few talking flags that we don't have to trigger or anything like that. But this fortune teller back here behind the castle Shikola dropped her crystal ball in the pond. So she was going to ask us to go there to get it, and then she would then help us get into She-Cola as a reward. But now we just are going to plop this down on our table. She's like, wow, I can't believe you found it. So She-Cola can only be entered if you are a lady. So the fortune teller dressed us up in a little disguise, and now we're going to enter She-Cola and talk to the queen. You must be from Radicola. But yeah, so this is kind of where the damage avoidance really starts to kick into gear. So Queen She-Cola is going to give us an upgraded main weapon, which is called the Shooting Star. You can only use the Shooting Star when 6 of your hearts are filled. So you need 6 red hearts. And the Shooting Star is twice as strong as your yo-yo. And also has a ranged attack. So it kind of throws like a ball and chain. And so if you drop down underneath 6 hearts, you immediately lose that. And you get dropped down to your yo-yo. So your damage output decreases a ton. That lady stepped in my way. Didn't want me to leave. So from this point onward, we really want to avoid taking damage at all costs. We're going to enter this next little dungeon here, which we talked to the head warrior in She-Cola about. And she basically told us how to cross this bridge. So I want everyone to type abracadabra after I jump on this block 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Abracadabra! It's all thanks to you, chat. We all had to say it in unison. I'm sure you all those octots kind of occupied the same space there, so it's like I didn't know it was going to happen. But yeah, you can't cross the bridge until you talk to that head warrior, which means you have to go to Ghost Village to get into She-Cola, so it's locked otherwise. This is a very short little dungeon. Just kind of gets us to the west side of this island. Now we're out of there. It's going to give us barely any points because it's such a small dungeon. And now we're going to the 5th and final dungeon of Chapter 3. So Chapter 3 is like a juggernaut of a chapter in this game, and it trips people up a lot. There's a lot to it, and many dungeons to get through, and they're not easy, but it's definitely worth playing this game. Trust me. Struggle through it if you can. So as you can see, we're killing those skulls in 1 hit now, when it used to be 2, and these things will die in 3 hits. Like so. We use our range to kill this skull as we go across. These white blocks sink as soon as you land on them, so as long as you're buffering your next jump, you are completely safe. But they can definitely be stressful. A lot of people don't know how to get that treasure chest, but you just jump to the right there, and there's an invisible block. It just kind of trolls you. These red blocks are the same as the white blocks. They're just red because of the lava. And now we're going to deal with these enemies called Frappas. Holy jeez. They were trying to get me, but we somehow didn't take a hit there. That was a really bad pattern. I wasn't sure if I would be able to hit that thing or not. So the Frappas can take forever to come out. They were giving me extremely nice patterns when I was practicing for this run. And then they just gave me a super aggressive one, so. We're going to hold down in this middle here to kind of mess with the RNG a little bit to cause the Frappas to appear faster. Lets us get out of that room quicker. Uh-oh. So those goblins, as soon as you hit them, they just bolt towards you, so you really need to kill them fast. They are very troublesome enemies, especially when you only have your yo-yo. They're tough to deal with. This is the only green Mad Muddy that you'll see in the game. So, wave goodbye to him, I guess. These bullies give you, like, can give you a good pattern, but he gave us a bad one, so we're going to kill him. Just to get him out of the way. There's another goblin there. Dropped a heart, which we don't need, thankfully. So these bullies, yeah, they take 6 hits with the shooting star, but if you have your yo-yo, they take 11. So it really adds up on time as well when you only have your yo-yo. Just from, like, doubled enemy attacks and everything. And then we're just going to walk through this wall, because it's actually a pass-through wall, and then we're going to land on this geyser and be launched up to the top of the mountain. That's it for Chapter 3. A little bit more overworld stuff, but that's essentially the first half of the game done. Oh yeah, and the game does have an autosave system after every dungeon, which is pretty sweet. Every dungeon and chapter. I love this game. I'm sure you could probably already tell, but I've been playing this since I was a kid. This is the exact same cart that I got when I was like 5 or 6. I've always loved this game. It's also got a sequel. Oh yeah, photosensitivity. I totally forgot. I'm sorry about that. It's too busy blabbering. I feel like it shouldn't show up too bad on my stream, but I might be wrong. But yeah, it's got a sequel that a lot of people don't know about, called Zoda's Revenge. Came out in 1994. So it got largely ignored because of the Super NES. So yeah, that's the end of Chapter 3. And now we're on to a whole bunch of overworld, so if any donations happen to roll in, you can just blast them out for probably about the next 5 or 6 minutes or something like that. But yeah.
No new donations just as of yet, but that's okay. There's still plenty of time for more.
Okay.
Don't forget, we're here supporting Child's Play to provide toys and games for kids and teens in hospitals around the world. You can check out www.childsplaycharity.org for more information. Oh, that does remind me, though. Actually, in speaking of donations, earlier on, we had an incentive to get the apple, which is a optional item in Chapter 6. Now, thanks to the generous donations of the community, we've absolutely smashed that. We have that unlocked, so you gotta get that apple. You gotta get that apple in Chapter 6. Don't forget.
I absolutely will get that apple. Believe me. It's become a bit of a meme, that thing. Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to it. So now we are in the belly of a whale. So we talked to a single person on that island, which is nice. It's one of the few situations where you only have to talk to one character in a village to progress instead of like 5 or 6 of them. And he says, I just saw some guy going east on a raft. So you then progress east and you get swallowed by this giant whale. And you have to kind of swim around its innards, which are entirely anatomically correct, I'm sure. I'm no whale doctor or anything, but you know, I trust Nintendo on their whale anatomy. Yeah, we're gonna swim around here, and we're looking for a lighter to burn Babu's raft with. So Babu was the guy we talked to on the first island, who basically gave us the key to the submarine and was like, I saw something happen to your uncle, but I don't feel like talking about it right now because I'm scared. And anyway, he then talks a little bit more about it. He says that he saw a ship in the sky come and take your Uncle Steve away. So we got our big lighter, which is the size of Mike. So you know it's going to be really, really super incendiary. And it was probably expensive. Hopefully it's got Babu's initials engraved in it or something like that. But yeah, we take that back to the raft. This is just like an entirely overworld chapter. It's just like a little maze. I always considered it like a break after the intensity of Chapter 3. But a lot of speedrunners don't really like it because it's just, there's no actual action to do. So the whale will sneeze us out, and this is one of the most famous things in the game, or of this game rather. So you have to input a code at this point into your submarine in order to progress. And he says, tell Mike to dip Dr. Steve's letter in water. So normally, I'm just going to put this in. So you enter 747 here, and normally you would find that by dipping a physical letter that came with the game in water, which had like a normal letter on it, but then some secret stuff at the bottom. So it's only revealed when you actually submerge the letter. So a lot of people, it's a really cool thing. It's sort of an anti-piracy thing. A lot of people have some interesting stories about how they rent the game, and then the game didn't come with that information, so then they got either locked there or would brute force the code, which would take a long time. But yeah, 747 now, if you ever need it, thanks to the internet. So we're talking to Hook here, and he's going to give us a worm. We specifically came over to this side first to save a little bit of time. Otherwise, we'd have to come back here. Normally, you don't even learn about this, the worm thing, until you visit the first the village in this area and talk to a parrot who says he needs like a gift or whatever. So we go get the worm first, which is the gift for the parrot, so that we save some travel time, essentially. Now we're going to head over to the lovely little city of Belcola. You can see it. There's this large ship that's blocking our path. Even though we're a submarine, and technically we should be able to go underneath it. But we, for some reason, cannot get past that ship. So, instead, we're going to talk to all these people. This chick's going to tell us she's the second oldest person on all the islands. The guy on the island here is going to sing to us a little bit. And then we're going to talk to the village chief here. Talking to all those people, drops a flag for this guy, who then lets us in. And so the chief of Belcola says that Captain Bell blocked the strait by sacrificing his ship. So that's why the ship is there. And he says that in order to get rid of the ship, you need to go talk to Peter. Then he's like, good luck. Peter is this parrot, who is also pretty famous because he's on the Nintendo Power cover of the magazine that covered this game first. So you give him the worm, and he tells you this little jingle. He says, do me so far, do me. And you might think, well, that's pretty lewd. I don't really like you, parrot. But in actuality, it is a code to a puzzle that we're going to use momentarily. So now we're going to travel all the way back to the right here again and go into a secret path in order to progress. Very lewd parrot. But also very helpful. And yeah, there's no way to bypass that. You have to talk to the parrot. And if you don't, and you go to this next area where you use that code, the code just straight up doesn't work. So you cannot input it early. They wanted to make sure that you had gotten that information before being able to stand on these piano keys in the proper way. So we're going to step on them in the same pattern as what he said. Basically, do mi, so fa, do mi. That's going to drop the flames there. I want everyone in chat to press F for the F room coming up. Like a little StarTropics meme. There's the F room. It's called the F room because the room is shaped like an F. That's about how original we get at the StarTropics Discord. Now we're in the fifth chapter dungeon. So this is a dungeon that's largely focused on traps, rather than necessarily killing stuff, which you'll see one right here as we travel across this rickety block bridge. screen shaking, all of a sudden, it's a little bit more stressful. But we have time to grab these hearts, which gives us our shooting star that we want to try and keep as much of the dungeon as we can. Got all these spears launching out of the wall. I did a turn buffer there to trigger that spear to launch such that it wouldn't hit me. You can jump it, but doing the turn buffer is a little bit faster, saves some frames. Here we're going to go north, as indicated by this cross. And there's like quicksand pits here that you need to kind of figure out the room layout of by using the ways that by observing the rats, essentially. They will turn around when they are going to walk over quicksand. So then this next room is another room where everything starts to collapse, but you just kind of make your way over here. Normally you'd be freaked out, but once you know where the tile is, it's good. And then we got a giant bowling ball, which I'm going to pause and then walk behind. So these bowling balls are called megatons. They are a one-hit kill. As you can see, you can stop them with your attack, but you can never kill them. So you really need to play it safe around them. And you'll notice that I did say bowling balls because there are more than one, unfortunately. These pinballs move when you hit them, but again, you can't kill them. We're going to do a strat here where I kind of sit in the top left corner, which lures these snakes to kind of glide towards me, and then you can just kind of attack them as you leave. It's the last time we're going to see dodos. They are officially extinct. I'm going to do a buffer strat here, which involves the use of the mirror, which will delay me the perfect number of frames to just sneak out past that green megaton. Stressful every time. I have yet to be killed when I do that strat, but I'm sure it's going to happen sometime. Took an unfortunate hit from that bat, but that's okay. We're going to reveal the single ghost that we need to kill in order to progress here. I'm going to buffer my attack as I enter here to trigger this pinball, and then I can damage boost through both at the same time to minimize any extra damage. These pencil traps are... they can kind of give you some weird patterns sometimes. That was a really good one. And we just need to run across here. And there's one more megaton we got to deal with, which is the scariest one. It actually follows you around. I'm just going to turn about there. There we go. I am known to miss input when I do that attack and like face the wrong way because I roll my thumb on the the control pad, and so I'll sometimes attack upwards or downwards, and then the bowling ball squash me. So I like to joke that the red bowling ball is red because it's coated in BugDr blood. I have done this. Yes, that's okay. First of all, we need to salute everyone. Do an 07 in chat to salute Captain Bell and his immense sacrifice of his ship to protect us all from pirates. But we're gonna sink that ship. But yeah, I've done this run blindfolded, but with chat help. I rigged a Sammy button to just have a bunch of audio cues that people could help me through the game with. But it was very fun. Very fun little experiment. But there's definitely some rooms that would just be basically impossible without chat help. So by no means done it alone, blindfolded.
May I chime in with a donation?
Yep, you may.
I want to get into this one here. This might be my favorite donation so far, and it has a question for you, BugDr. It's from Zarek for $10, and it reads, BugDr is a great guy. And not just a good speedrunner. During Christmas 1988, I was an upscale work party that was taken hostage by German gunmen. BugDr hid from the hostage takers and took them out, saving all of us. They made a documentary about it, in which he was played by Bruce Willis. Now, I think that's absolutely true. I'm not questioning that whatsoever. How are your feet?
They are still scarred. Still scarred from the glass, but they're
Completely understandable. Back to you.
Yeah. I'm going down here. We're getting the Big Apple right now. I did not forget.
I'm gonna get that apple. Yeah.
Yeah, here it is. So we're gonna go down these stairs, and there's that giant apple, the size of Mike. You've got a big apple. It's delicious, but nothing happens, and that's what the incentive was. It's just this little meme item that kind of fakes you out on your first time through, because you're like, oh, cool, a giant apple, and it's like, yeah, nothing happens. Makes you think it's like a big heart or something, but it's not. There is a big heart on the islands, but we're going to ignore it. Thank you to everyone who contributed to getting that donation met. It's a funny little goofy thing to do. Yeah, so we got this overworld section, kind of like this little maze, and you need to like kind of figure out where to submerge in order to progress. But luckily, because we're speedrunning, we know the path here, and we're trying to find our uncle. So at this point, because of the frequency I input after the whale, Navcom is kind of telling us that he's picking up this signal. So we're trying to avoid as many instances of Navcom talking as possible in order to be faster, which involves basically hugging this wall here and then just going directly to there. And when he says the signal has stopped, then that's when you submerge and you actually get to move around underwater with your sub. I'm going to do this blindfolded. Look at me do this dungeon with my eyes closed. It's very difficult. And we're out. Wow. Please hold your applause. I know it's impressive, but for real though, we're getting into the actual dungeon here. So this is 6-1. We get a lot of cool items in Chapter 6. The first of which is this anklet, which increases our jump range to 2. So now you can jump over 2 tile gaps, but only for the room that you pick the item up in, unfortunately. Gotta kill just the pink mummies here. We're gonna kill this one because it's in our way. The pink mummies do a lot of damage, so whenever there's a room with them, I'm going to focus. We're going to take an intentional damage here from this Octot, which will set us up on a damage frame to ensure that we hit that right one on our attack. So something that's interesting about StarTropics is it only detects damage or collision every other frame. So if you happen to attack that... Sorry, 1 second. If you happen to attack that Octot from distance and be on the wrong frame, you won't hit it. So we set that up there so you always hit it on the first go. This is Turbos. He's basically a reskin of Octo the Huge from earlier. Much uglier. Oh, I missed one hit. That sucks. Get down here. I thought I counted that out right, but I did not. So this is what can happen with Turbos. If you let him get away, he will just kind of do this. Sometimes. This is actually incredible. Okay, he's coming down now. Just needed the one, unfortunately. So that cost like, what was that? 30 or 40 seconds just waiting for him. And that's kind of one of the bad things about the bosses in this game is they can, they can just delay to a point where they cost you a lot of time. But yeah, so a lot of people don't like Turbos for that reason, because he will do that very often. But that was my fault. I didn't count the hits properly. He takes 16 hits, and I hit 15, so... yeah. I mean, I just wanted to show an example of bad boss behavior. Yeah, that's all it was, yeah. So use the anklet and our knowledge of the dark to traverse that room. Here we're going to get the cleats, which attack everything on the current room, which is awesome. I'm going to try to do a very specific strat here. Whoops, that was not what I meant to do. Didn't mean to walk into the enemy. But this long room is very particular. The fireball cannons can shoot at very odd times. Kind of just improvising right now. Should do it. There we go. Kill these mummies. Whoops. These are the weaker mummies, thankfully. But this room can be a pain because you have to jump through it while they can just walk over all those blocks. Now we're going to fight Broken Joe. So we got these baseballs early in the dungeon, and they only work on him. Don't kill anything else. And nothing else works on Broken Joe, so... Okay, well, at least after that bad Turboss, we got a one-cycle Joe, so that's good. But yeah, so if at this point you have used all your baseballs, you're just dead. You just gotta accept your fate. Unfortunately. There's some stuff like that that they didn't give as much thought as they should have. But in StarTropics 2, there's none of that stuff, so... StarTropics 2 is a lot more fair when it comes to weird situations like that. So now we're going to go into the second dungeon of Chapter 6. But first we see this weird piece of slag. There's 3 holes in it and an inscription, but you can't read it, so we just kind of progress onwards. And we're going to hold right going into this dungeon because it's got like a little fake start there. You actually want to go through this wall. Again, the game just kind of trolling. We got to kill one rat here. I don't know why I said rat that way. Rat. Kill both these bats here. Those knives operate the same as those pencil traps we saw earlier. Got a cool weapon here called the Asterisk, which you throw and then detonate again by pressing B, which then splits them and lets them attack in 2 opposite directions at the same time. It's a really cool weapon that we unfortunately only see in this dungeon. Ooh, I almost got hit by that fuzzball. I did there, but it doesn't matter. So the fuzzballs are the same things as like the bubbles in Zelda. If you take a hit from one, it doesn't actually do damage to you, but instead it makes you unable to attack for like 6 or 7 seconds. It's awful. I'm gonna focus on killing this thing. There we go. So that's it's called a hoodoo doll. If they walk into you at this point in the game, you're dead in 1 hit. They do exactly 11 hearts of damage on contact. So we need to be very careful around them. Got these enemies called Rockies, which we're going to try and lure them over from the side. Like, we want to be at either side of the room for them, because it reduces their spawn time, essentially. Because then they don't have to travel the entire room, just half of it. Or, you know, 3/4 of it, like with that guy. Kill those bats for fun. There's no reason to do that, but... That's the only one of those guys we're gonna have to deal with, thankfully. This room looks scary, but you just walk through this wall and save yourself the heart attack. We're going to pick up this potion just because it's there. It's a nice little safety thing. And then we got 2 hoodoo dolls in this next room. So that was okay. I kind of mistimed my attacks on the first one, which caused it to shoot, but we didn't take a hit, and that's what's important. And then we have the actual boss here, which is just these weird little statues called Sumochos. We're just going to use the asterisk to melt them. And they're just going to sit there, and they're supposed to shoot, and they just decided not to, I guess. Sometimes they also just decide not to shoot, which is good, especially in a marathon setting. But even then, like, their shots are not very tough to dodge or anything like that, so yeah. That's the last dungeon of Chapter 6. It's your day off, yeah. Out to lunch. Just gonna go around this hole here. This was caused by that molten kind of piece of metal we saw earlier. And as we make our way along this cave, along this cavern, we find our Uncle Steve. He's like, it's me! And then he tells you all this stuff. A bunch of exposure, and we're going to try not to make him talk again. Because you can cause him to repeat his text, which costs a lot of time, but we're just going to buff our input there and tell him, no, I don't want to listen to you again. But he basically tells you that that molten thing was an escape pod from a planet. It had 3 magic cubes in it that were drilled out. That's what the holes were. And the 3 magic cubes are the essence of a civilization that is now gone. So, some high stakes. And they were also taken by nasty aliens, which we're now going to have to deal with. So we are in the alien spaceship stages. And these are no joke. This very first dungeon is called the Bottleneck, and it is infamous, nearly as infamous as the Ghost Village. So I'm going to hope that it goes well. If it doesn't, and I take a death, I'll use a backup strat. But we're hoping. It's a very open-ended dungeon. Just going to wait for the biker to go by. Go through these teleporters here. And we need to kind of be careful as we go by these green aliens. They do a ton of damage. They do 5 hearts on contact and 2.5 when they shoot you. But we're going to try and just walk by these things. There we go. That's a very good, very, very good 7-1. Thank God. So what happens is those enemies can just drop your hearts really, really low, very, very fast. They can kill you, but they can also just bring you down to your yo-yo. And if you get down to your yo-yo in that room with the bikers, they are very likely going to kill you. Because they take 2 hits with that weapon. Fighting this, kind of, we call them the fat bots because they're very wide robots. You just kind of blast them with this ray gun that we picked up, which is pretty sweet. That's one of the best sub-weapons, like, probably the best sub-weapon in the game, honestly. Yeah, that's 7-1. That's like a really troublesome dungeon for new runners, and as a result, there are a lot of backups you can take, but luckily we didn't need to do one. I'm just waiting for the day that I get destroyed by a spaceship in a marathon, but thankfully it hasn't happened yet. Although we still have more dungeons to go, so I shouldn't speak so soon yet. And then we get our first magic cube, and this is going to improve our shooting star even further to a weapon called the Supernova. The Supernova is only active when you have a full top row of hearts, does 3 damage per shot, and it travels the entire room. So you can just kind of murder stuff. StarTropics does this thing where it makes you kind of go through a really tough dungeon with your current weapon right before giving you the upgrade and then making you feel like pretty strong. So we can just attack this guy from distance, for example, and not even worry about him. Oh, never mind. He actually got a shot in. That's pretty incredible. This is Jeff, the alien. I just named him that one day because he generally always hits me. This time he did not, so thank you, Jeff. We're going to hope that the turrets after this teleporter line up and I'm able to kill them quickly. But we'll see. Got 3 of them. Okay, and I have not taken damage, so I'm going to skip. There's a pill you can get in this next room, but we're going to skip it because we're in good shape. We call this, the pill is called Vitamin X, but the StarTropics community lovingly calls it space drugs. Gotta kill all these aliens. Which you generally want to just stay diagonal to them because they can't shoot diagonally. And then just kind of react to their movement. Pick up this gun, which is, I call it a shield gun. It does like this very wide shot. And it does 4 damage per shot, so it's very, very strong. And also, I knew you were going to do that. It has like a very high fire rate because as soon as the shot is gone, you can then refire. So if things are really close, you can just kind of spam it. I'm going to do a strat here to ignore these. Walk over them. Those normally do like 7 hearts of damage, so we want to avoid them as much as possible. This is Ostroid. I'm doing a very particular strat to keep him at the back there. And we drop that bridge out from under him to make him drop it in the pit. And that's 7-2. I did a buffer strat there. I basically held B while the door was opening so that Mike would shoot as soon as possible after the door opens, which delays you enough to just land on that block as it's appearing. So it looks like I'm going to jump into the pit, but then it appears at the last moment. Yeah, so Ostroid, normally you have to like, you kind of battle him backwards and then you hit a switch and then he'll generally jump forward after that, but we use a strat to try to keep him at the back of the room. So that when you drop the bridge out, he just falls with it. You can also do some interesting strategies that involve actually killing him with the like your sub-weapons and things, but his health works in a very particular way that makes it very tricky to do and also risky. So we just have this little hallway. By little, I mean this large maze. It's actually a large maze. Not a little hallway at all. And this leads to our second magic cube here. And the magic cube, this magic cube is going to fill up our health entirely. It's going to max out our health bar. And if you have taken a lot of damage in 7-2, it refills that whole, like the whole thing, both rows. So the less damage you have, the more time it takes to count up the hearts. So you want to have as much health as possible at the end of 7-2. Yeah, overly long maze-like hallways. They're just so long. They're just filler to make the game seem longer. And now we're into last chapter. Fairly short one, but very intense. Got a number of bosses to deal with, which hopefully will go smooth, but we'll see. Bye, Uncle. Go to space. So finally, we're going to encounter the fiend Zoda, who basically chased down and destroyed that race, the Argonians, and caused them to use that escape pod to send their last little bits of civilization to Earth. And so this is our first battle here. I'm going to grab this gun, and we're going to try not to walk into a hand, because that would be bad. We need to shoot each Zoda face once. Walking downwards increases the chances of a face spawning to about 70%. This was just found, like, I don't know, a couple years ago now by another StarTropics runner named Tantalus. Otherwise, you get these hands, which cost about 3 to 4 seconds each. So we got 3 hands there. 4 used to be like the average. Now the average is like 1 or 2. So that's boss number 1. Then we have this almost like side-scrolling kind of section, which is pretty cool. So that was the Vitamin X. As you can see, it completely filled up our health. Good old space drugs. And we've got these, a lot of enemies to deal with. We generally want to get shot by them rather than taking body contact, because body contact does a lot more damage with the aliens for whatever reason. Okay, that was good. We're going to fight the reactor. Just kind of try to destroy the ship reactor here. That alien gave a bad pattern, so we're going to get a 2-cycle here. Which is fine. Yeah, that can get very, very tricky. Those golden spikes that are launching do a ton of damage, and you can't jump over them, even though it looks like you should be able to. Now we're going to fight final form of Zoda, which is called Zoda Prime. And there's aggressive strats, but I'm going to play it safe because he is very scary. 1-hit kill on him if you touch him. So we're going to wait for him to jump, and then hit him a couple times, then jump away. There you go. That's it. GG. And we're going to get... So, we stopped the timer specifically on the death of Zoda, like the death animation, because of this. So what can happen is... Normally, you're supposed to do this really, really cool ending, and you're supposed to be hearing some really, really cool music to these lovely slides here. This lovely little slideshow. But what happens is if you kill him, he can spit out these little enemies called Zoda Spawn. If you kill him before he spits out 2 of them, then this glitch happens where it just warps you directly to this post-credit sequence, essentially. And you don't get to play out the ending. So that's why we stop on Zoda's death animation. Because it's not really something you can control. He'll either spit them out as you approach, or he won't. And generally, if you stay close to him, what you're trying to do, he won't spit them out. So, yeah. So that's StarTropics. Yeah, the ending would make it take a little bit longer, but yeah, we are basically done here. It's a great game. The StarTropics Discord is a great community. If this is the kind of game that interests you, strongly encourage join the Discord to check it out. It's a very straightforward run in that there's not really any glitches or anything like that. It's like all like how well can you execute the game, and that is what drew me to it. So yeah, definitely strongly, I'm a little bit biased, but I strongly recommend you check out this game at least. So yeah, and with that, I am going to sign off. So thank you for joining me for this speed run. I hope you had a lot of fun, and I don't know about you, but I'm excited for the next game quite a bit. So yeah, we are going to... I'll catch you later. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.
Okay, BugDr, thank you very, very much for your run. GG's. Folks, you are watching Night 2 of PFB 2023. We're going to take a quick break to stretch, get some water, jiggle the wires, dust off the screens, that sort of thing. Coming up next is Metroid Dread with Kikumen Shoyu. We'll be right back.